Hi guys, welcome to another Seasons in Garden video. In this video I am just going to go through a little walkthrough of all of the preserves that I have done this year from the garden. It's not much because it was really a difficult gardening year for me this year. I had some medical issues, but also I had a mold that just rampaged throughout the garden and it's currently doing its job now in the garden. Since I added those little sticks, vibration sticks that are more repellent, they are solar powered, and currently in the winter time when there's not a lot of sun, they're not really doing a very good job, so I will have to do the raised beds next year. They will be in the same configuration as my current garden beds now, at least for my veggie plot. But yeah, I have to do something because this year I have harvested one carrot. There was only one carrot that survived the rampage and two little spring onions, so I count this as an absolute disaster because we have no carrots and no onions this winter that we have grown. So, nevertheless, there are still some things that thrived, and I would like to show you what I've done with them. Some are fairly simple, like just dried goods, and others are jams, compotes, pickles, and over here I have some cake filling, or just a fruit filling, if you will. So I'm going to start, I think, from this end and then move on towards the other end. These are not chronologically, set up anyways, so let's start. So the first one is going to be this. This is petals for my calendulas, those calendulas that just do rampage over the garden. I do harvest them because they are quite a good medicinal plant. I can do some salves with it. I can drink them as a tea, especially when I have a very strong menstrual cramps. I should actually drink them a bit more, but I do. But yeah, these help out a bit with that stuff. And yeah, I put them into some dishes. You can even use them a little bit similar to the saffron, or if you want to like dye something a very light yellow color. They are not going to be that strong, but this is something that I like to have in my cupboard all year round. Right. Next one is the cake filling. This, if you can read, it says Kruška 2022. So this was done with the little pear harvest that we had this year, because unfortunately we got COVID in the time for pear harvest, and then of course all of the wasps said yay, and they did their harvest instead of us. That was not really nice because they just what wasps do is they make a hole in the pear and then they spare rots because it has an open wound. It was unfortunate, but that's the way that it is, you know. Sometimes you cannot influence the stuff. Next one. This is one of the most recent ones to be harvested. This is the rose hip jam. Now, in my last video I was harvesting these rose hips, and after the harvest me and Grumpy went through a painstaking process of removing the little seeds from the rose hips and quartering them so that I can prepare them for the tea, which is this one. And I also made jam. The jam is just, it's It's beautiful. It has that floral classical rose hips notes with just a hint of apple, because the recipe calls for 1 apple to pound of rose hips. And I used it's less sweet, it has less sugar to be precise, because I used this special gelling or jamming sugar that has replaced a certain percentage of the sugar with the erythrit or the stevia stuff, so that this actually isn't very sweet, and that's what I like. It does have a bit of darkness, and honestly I prefer my jams to be a bit more tart than too sweet. I don't like too sweet stuff. Next one. Now this is blackberry jam. I also have some blackberries in my freezer because I like to keep a bit of the harvest in the freezer, and then during the winter time and the springtime I can do certain desserts with the frozen blackberries. But this year we had so many blackberries. We had like huge harvest of blackberries, actually a couple of them, and I've made a ton of jam, blackberry jam. And I also, since Grumpy isn't very fond of blackberry jam, he prefers plum jam to blackberries or anything else, I actually gave some out to my friends and family as gifts this year. So it was a very good blackberry harvest, and I'm very happy with the results. Next is, I think this is actually the only pickle that I've done this year. I almost had nothing to pickle, so it is what it is. But this over here, in this little jar, is something special. It is actually radish seed pods that are pickled. Now I've done 2 versions of this. This one has dill inside, so these are dilled, and I have to admit that I prefer undilled version or just a plain version. And last year when I pickled them, I used a recipe which called for garlic. This time I didn't put any garlic inside. I just don't like the garlic with radish seed pods. It kind of doesn't do a nice flavor for me, so I'm still currently searching for the best pickling recipe for the radishes. And I think that next year I have found a recipe that is called mustard radish seed pods, and I'm going to try this out because I have a feeling that these radish seed pods together with the mustard would make a dream team. So I'm going to try that out next year. Right, now this over here is completely sugar-free. It's actually a gooseberry compote that I've made from gooseberries. We also had quite a nice harvest of gooseberries, and I mean my hands are still, hurting when I just remember picking them, but I'm very glad that I did, because this is amazing. It is just the way that I like my compotes, not too sweet and tart. So super delicious, and I'm very happy that I did it. Right, now this I have already mentioned. This is from the last harvest that we did. The last harvest of the year in my garden is rose hips. So this is rose hip tea or dried rose hips. We have just watered them, deseeded them, because they have those little hairs with their seeds that you shouldn't really inhale or, well, to be honest, even consummate, because they can cause an irritation. So we did the painstaking process of removing the hairs and the seeds from the rose hips. Luckily we had NFL to help us out. But yeah, that was just... This is way more rewarding than the rosehip tea, even though I like to have rosehip tea. I put my rosehip tea in the little jars, so this is just one of them. All of these are just the types that I did. Well, this is the single jar that I have, and this over here, the last jar, is the amaranth that I harvested this year, and so far this is the only jar that I have, but it's going to be enough for us, at least for this year. I also kept some as seed material so that I can seed them and then slowly grow my amaranth harvest. But yeah, the other jars, they are just representatives of the types of the stuff that I have preserved this year. There's not a lot of jars of this particular jams and preserves, but it's enough to get us through the winter and to the next spring, and then maybe even the hunger gap, and then we can start the process of harvest and preserves again. I have mentioned that I have frozen blackberries in my fridge that I didn't take out. I also have one more thing that I harvested from the garden this year, because finally my cat didn't sleep on those seedlings and I had something to plant, and that is the Swiss chard. So I'm very happy that I finally have rainbow Swiss chard in my garden, and I harvested it and I preserved it. I just chop it, blanch it and put it inside the fridge so that I can have it for the dishes during the winter time. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, I think that that's it for this year. As you can tell, it's not a lot, but it still is something, and I'm very happy about this one. This one I'm just delighted for, because I really miss the rosehip jam. It's one of my favorites, yeah, I'm very happy to have it. I even already did some Christmas cookies with it, and these are just absolutely delicious. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll hear each other in the next year. We will start first with the garden prep, the raised beds, and then in 1 year time I'm again going to do my 2023 garden preserves review. Take care, bye bye, see you soon.